Live in Technicolor. All right, welcome everybody to the August 15th School Board of Manatee County's special meeting. I want to officially call this meeting to order. Let's go ahead with the start of the meeting for our Pledge of Allegiance. So if you rise with me and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Approval of the agenda. We only have one item on the agenda. So I'll look to get a motion and a second.
So moved.
For the approval of the agenda. Seeing no board members lit up to speak, let's go ahead and approve the agenda for this morning. That passes 5-0. Thank y'all. All right, moving to our only item of new business. I'm going to turn it over to School Board Attorney Mr. Dye to begin this morning. Mr. Dye?
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning.
Good morning.
Board members, Superintendent. So I'm going to read into the record the reason why you're here this morning, the purpose of the meeting. It's the final hearing concerning the DOA recommended order in the matter of Manatee County School Board v. Verlin-Wilhoit, DOA case 25-0360. You've been provided a sheet that also describes in more detail the purpose of the final order meeting. I'm gonna, if you'll bear with me, I'm gonna read it to get it into the record. But it describes the reason why you're here this morning, the purpose of the vote in those matters. This is the last step in an appeal of a disciplinary action that goes to a department, the DOA, Department of Administrative Hearings under Chapter 120, Florida statutes, follows their procedures. It's been heard by a DOA judge who issued a recommended order that you have as well this morning. Following the filing of the recommended order, any exceptions to it, any responses to the exceptions, the matter must be placed on the school board's agenda for consideration. Parties must be provided with notice of the meeting during which the recommended order and any exceptions are being considered. In this case, Mr. Wilhoit did file exceptions to the judge's order, and they were responded to by the district's counsel, Mr. Gonzalez. The judge issued a recommended order, findings of fact, conclusions of law, that actually upheld the former superintendent's termination of the employee. So the board at this point has some choices. The board can choose to adopt the DOA judge's recommended order in its entirety as its final order. If the board can also choose to reject or modify conclusions of law or findings of fact, but if you do that, you have to have reasons for doing that, and those have to be stated with very particular and put into the record. The agency may also accept the recommended penalty that comes from the DOA judge in the recommended order. May not reduce or increase it without review of the complete record and without stating with particularity its reasons therefore. So you got the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and then the penalty is the different sections of the order. Each party is given 15 minutes to present its position before you vote. I don't think Mr. Wilhoit does not appear to be here to utilize the 15 minutes. And the superintendent typically makes a recommendation as well to the board before you vote. This morning, you're going to hear an alternative recommended order from your superintendent that I'll let him describe. And so you'll have before you basically the two recommended orders, the one from the DOA judge and one that's being recommended by the superintendent. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Chapman at this point, unless there's some questions you want to ask me.
Thank you. I don't see anyone lit up to speak, so Mr. Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My statement is as follows. Dr. Wilhoit has filed exceptions to the administrative law judge's recommended order of termination issued by the Division of Administrative Hearings. The district has responded to those exceptions. Dr. Wilhoit did not file an exception to the penalty recommended by the administrative law judge, which was that Dr. Wilhoit be terminated. Florida Statute 120.57, Section 1K provides the agency, in this case the school board, may accept the recommended penalty in a recommended order, but may not reduce or increase it without a review of the record and without stating with particularity the reasons therefore in the order by citing to the record and justifying the action. Having reviewed the Division of Administrative Hearings recommended order and knowing that the board members have reviewed the administrative record, I recommend that the penalty for the violations found by the administrative law judge be reduced as follows. Dr. Wilhoit will serve a disciplinary suspension without pay of 20 workdays. Dr. Wilhoit will serve a 1-year performance contract that is contingent upon him incurring no further personnel issue during that year. Any such issue will result in contract termination. Dr. Wilhoit will be assigned to an appropriate position that does not involve responsibility for or oversight of student discipline, and Dr. Wilhoit will take and successfully complete 6 hours of training approved by the Human Resources Department. I believe the school board's reduction of the recommended penalty is justified by record evidence showing Dr. Wilhoit's length of service to the Manatee County School District and his stated desire to continue that employment. A lengthy suspension without pay is justified by Dr. Wilhoit's response to previous discipline. With reassignment of job responsibilities, successful completion of additional training to be specified by the HR department, and close supervision this upcoming year, Dr. Wilhoit's suspension will constitute meaningful penalty short of termination for his breach of school board policy. That concludes my statement, Mr. Board Chair.
Thank you very much. To get some discussion going, I'm going to go ahead and motion to accept the recommended order subject to and incorporating the superintendent's recommended modification to the penalty. Is there a second?
So moved.
So you have a motion and a second on the floor to accept that recommendation order subject to and incorporating the superintendent's recommended modification to the penalty. So we can open this up for discussion. I have Mr. Tatum, Ms. Felton.
Okay. So I'm going to ask Mr. Messenger in a second here to play a video. It's a video, it's short if you'll indulge me for 3 or 4 minutes, of a B-52 crash at Fairchild Air Force Base in 1994. So, Mr. Messenger, if you could play that video for us, and then when you see me do this with my hand there, we can stop it. But go ahead and play that if you would, please.
CBS News correspondent Scott Pelley, that the crash was the result of the pilot doing unsafe stunts in violation of safety regulations. But the story does not end there. In tonight's Eye on America, correspondent Pelley has more about an out-of-control pilot and a hero co-pilot who tried to stop him.
The disaster was horrifying. 4 senior officers killed as their B-52 bomber crashes at Fairchild Air Force Base near Spokane, Washington. Incredibly, it was no surprise. Top Air Force pilots had fought for years to prevent this accident, but were ignored by senior commanders.
He continues his turn. And
Today, the Air Force said the pilot caused the crash by performing forbidden aerobatic maneuvers in preparation for an air show. He was Lieutenant Colonel Arthur Holland, one of the most skilled flyers in the Air Force, but a man known to take terrible risks in a B-52. Often captured on home video, his flights pushed the bomber far beyond its limits. Too low, too steep. Junior officers complained repeatedly. But it was after this flight, when Holland cleared a ridge by 30 feet, that one officer decided he had to be stopped. Lieutenant Colonel Mark McGeehan, Air Force Academy graduate and squadron commander at Fairchild, demanded Holland be grounded.
The crews were extremely worried.
McGeehan's wife, Jody.
One of the aviators in the squadron was not a safe flyer, and they did not want to fly with him anymore.
But superior officers defended Holland, saying he was too senior, too experienced to be grounded. They refused McGeehan's request.
He more or less stood by the door and looked at his commander and said, "I just want to make sure that you completely understand me. I do not believe that he should ever be able to fly again."
So with his superior officer refusing to act, McGeehan did the only thing within his power. He ordered his men never to fly with Holland. If anybody had to go, he would. So Mark McGeehan was the co-pilot on the flight that day, as his wife and 3 sons watched.
As we were out there waving, the boys were screaming, "Dad," you know, as thinking for sure that they could see him as they were coming straight over the house.
That's enough, Mr. Messenger. Thanks.
Everything sort of was slow.
My understanding is that Dr. Wilhoit is a veteran, and so that gives me, I mean, you get a few points with me for being a veteran. But the point here is that over the course of Dr. Wilhoit's career, many people have told us, and this is not his personnel record, this is his discipline record, have told us he's dangerous. Don't let him fly the plane anymore. He may be good at what he does, just like Lieutenant Colonel Holland was good at what he does. But he has, in his official record, 5 reprimands from different bosses, different supervisors, different superintendents. He also has 2 suspensions, a 2-day suspension, a 5-day suspension. In 2018 was a 2-day suspension, a 5-day suspension in 2020. And now he's up before us again with something else. A group of senior leaders within the school system has reviewed his record and reviewed the incident that happened that day. And by the way, it's not just the incident that happened, that last incident that happened, the video that we watched. If that was it, I would take a different tact on this. But multiple supervisors, multiple superintendents, a group of senior leaders within the organization, and a DOA judge have all said, this gentleman should not be working at the Manatee County school system anymore. He's a danger to himself and those around him. Take the keys of the plane away from him. And what should have happened to Lieutenant Colonel Holland is he should have gone through what's called an FEB, a Flight Evaluation Board. He should have had his wings taken from his chest, and he should have been removed from the Air Force for gross violation of safety standards and conduct unbecoming an officer. Dr. Wilhoit has been in the school system for 25 years. He'll still have his, if we were to terminate him, whoever would like to answer this question, would he lose his pension?
No.
No, he's not going to lose his pension. He's been with the system for 25 years. The people are telling us, just like they were Lieutenant Colonel Holland and everyone in the Air Force there, not everyone, but lots of people that flew with Lieutenant Colonel Holland, he's dangerous, don't let him fly the plane anymore. That's what this record shows, clearly. And the frustrating thing about the record is that there's never any remorse from Dr. Wilhoit. It's always somebody else's fault. If you read through here, it's, well, yeah, I did that, but. Well, yeah, but I was right. But yes, there's never any remorse. You know, actually, I was hopeful that he would come to us or show some type of contrition or show some, when he was standing up before us at the last hearing. That's why you saw me kind of struggle with my vote. I was hoping he would say, you know, I'm going to take a look at myself. I might have some issues going on here. You could see he was very angry and somewhat arrogant when he showed up in front of us. And again, that's what this record demonstrates. But there's no contrition there. It's always somebody else's fault. There's no self-introspection. And if you're a senior leader, if you've been here for 25 years, you have your doctorate degree, you have to be able to have that self-introspection, and he doesn't. And there's no contrition, and there's no remorse. And so I'll be voting against the superintendent's recommendation. If it goes forward, that's fine. It's a democratic process. If the vote goes down for the superintendent's recommendation, then I'll make a motion for termination. So I do this with a heavy heart. I actually chose a black jacket today because I've been thinking about this all week. I have no desire, especially a veteran, to see something like this happen to him. But but I was reminded of this accident, which all Air Force officers know about, especially aviators know about. And it was like, he's Tom Holland. Right? He's good at what he does, maybe, but he's a danger to the organization. We need to take the keys of the plane away from him and remove him because he's a danger to himself and those around him. And the record shows that. And he doesn't have any contrition for his outbursts and anger. And that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Felton?
I agree with Mr. Tatum. I will not be supporting the recommended order for pretty much all the same reasons. I also reviewed the binder that Mr. Tatum has over there. If you go look in the discipline office, there's not a lot in the drawer, right? Some people have a little manila folder. He's the only one with the whole binder. Is a binder of incidents. As Mr. Tatum said, we go back and you look, 7 incidents of progressive discipline, with this last thing being the 7th, generally for ethics violations. And that concerns me. In 2020, he was told that if there was another incident, he would be terminated. And since then, there's been 2 incidents. This was taken to discipline committee. They unanimously agreed that termination was necessary. These are our coworkers. This is not a decision they came to lightly. Nobody likes to make those kinds of decisions. They brought that to the superintendent, who then proceeded with that recommendation to this board. I still, to this day, regret going along with the decision to retain him on salary, but can't do anything about that right now. And then, of course, then it's gone to DOA, who again recommends termination. Even if we just took into account the video evidence from this latest incident, that to me was unacceptable. We do not put our hands on children. And yes, the child slammed a tray down and was yelling. But he was not physically attacking Dr. Wilhoit. Dr. Wilhoit put his hands on the child first. We do not put our hands on children. And so that's just one more thing. But it's not just that. It's the fact that there's 7 incidences with progressive discipline throughout, and nothing seems to have made a dent in that this behavior needs to change. This is a repeated pattern of behavior. And as Mr. Tatum said, there doesn't seem to be any show of, well, I was wrong. I should not have said that. I shouldn't have done that. I should have kept my temper. And having myself been in the situation of being treated in that way as an employee, because I was female, by the way, I have a very particular view on that sort of behavior. And the person that was continually speaking to me in that way was reprimanded and continued to act in that way. I finally had to quit that job because our upper supervisors didn't do anything about it. They liked him, they were buddies. and he was a good chef. This was working in a restaurant. He was a good chef, and they didn't want to have to replace him. So the harassment to me got progressively worse until finally I quit. And this was as an adult as well. That to be treated in that way, to be treated without respect from your coworkers, it makes it a hostile working environment. And to come to work every day feeling sick to my stomach, knowing I'm going to have to interact with that person, that made it worse every day. I mean, we've all watched the training videos, right, about the girl that is being harassed by the guy and not wanting to speak up. That's how I felt. And now we had people speak up. 6 different people, at least 6 different people, have spoken up. And we are not taking them into account. Their feelings, what happened to them, doesn't matter if we go forward with this, particularly after being told that he would be terminated if this behavior continued, and it continued. 2 more incidents took place. And to have him come back to work for the district shows that this board does not respect those people who were victims of his treatment. I don't anticipate, of course, him going back into a school, so child safety, I don't think will be an issue, but we should protect our staff. We should treat them with respect. To, completely ignore this and continue with this this new final order, in which paragraphs 31 and 39 are rejected, and then you look at DOA's paragraphs 31, and let me flip there, I've got them folded. Let's see, 31, let's back a page. The preponderance of evidence, this is 31, the preponderance of the evidence supports following petitioner's progressive discipline policy and the sequential penalty of termination established in the employee handbook is appropriate. And then you go to 39. Because the petitioner exhausted all disciplinary steps articulated in the progressive discipline policy prior to the September 30, 2024 altercation between the respondent and KY, petitioner has just cause to terminate the respondent. They then give us some case law there that was a prior example dating back to 2012, in which the school board had just cause to terminate an educational support employee for violation of school board rule using progressive discipline. And we're going to exclude the progressive discipline violations by eliminating those paragraphs, which seems to me that this is based solely on one incident without looking at a pattern of repeated behavior. And this concerns me because having agreed in the past to, toe the line, follow procedure, maintain ethics, and then not doing so many times shows me that this new order, this new discipline is not going to matter. We can only do so much to help him. And they have tried. Otherwise, he would have been fired long ago. They continued through the process. Okay, we're going to move you to this position. You're no longer allowed to do this. You need to do this instead. We're going to have you work over here. And the pattern continues. It doesn't matter where he's been placed. And now we have staff who have been involved in this case, who now have to work here and work with or around him, and other staff who have been on the receiving end of his behavior who have to work here. And it shows this board, this order, that we are not concerned about their feelings and what they experienced as victims of this behavior. I will not be supporting the final order.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy.
Thanks. I'll be mostly brief because I think you all know how I feel about this case and have from day one. I do want to address previous, since it's been brought up, previous discipline, and it is in the record of the case, so I think it's fair to talk about. But to characterize Dr. Wilhoit as a danger to himself or others, I think is very unfair. I think to refer to victims is unfair as it pertains to his progressive or previous discipline. There were 2 previous discipline incidences where he was disciplined for arguing with the coworker. And I agree. You know, we all have moments where we can handle ourselves better. But some of the other progressive or previous discipline was most recently for sending an email to a DOE official in Tallahassee. I'm not sure how that becomes a discipline issue, but superintendent can write up anybody for anything they want. One of the other discipline issues previously was about a book that he wrote more than 20 years ago on his own personal time that had nothing to do with his job. I don't know how you bring discipline against an employee for something to do on their own time outside of their work, but you know, Mrs. Felton, I think I do see your point, and there were some times he could have handled himself better. And I think even in the incident that has brought us here today, I think Dr. Wilhoit could have handled himself better. I just don't believe it rises to the level of termination. And as you all remember, I didn't think we would even be dealing with an ALJ recommendation of termination. So when we did get that final order from the ALJ, honestly, I was very surprised. And, but I do think the ALJ's decision deserves consideration and respect, even though I disagree with it, which is why I do support this modified final order. Is that the correct term for it, modified?
Yeah.
A month without pay is a significant financial penalty, and I would ask any of us or any employee, not just in the school district, but any job, how would you do if you missed 2 paychecks out of 26? That's a significant penalty, and I think while I don't believe this case rises to the level of termination, I do think there is some discipline that should be handed down. So a month without pay, being reassigned to a job without student supervision, a performance contract with basically anything else, and it's over, and then 6 hours of training. I think that is, for me, it's a good middle ground between where I originally was, which is I can't believe that the ALJ came out with this decision, and frankly, some of the language in the final order. Let me just share one example with you. The ALJ uses the word chokehold in the, I believe it's in the final order. And I went through the transcript. I'm sure you all have read the transcript of the May 5th hearing. No one in that transcript uses the word chokehold. So I have some concerns about, what's the word I'm looking for? I'll just leave it at that. I just have some concerns about the language. So I believe this penalty, it's harsh, and I think it addresses the fact that Dr. Wilhoit could have handled himself better in this moment. And it's kind of this middle ground between where I am and where Mr. Tatum and Mrs. Felton are. So I will support the motion of the modified order. That's it for me.
Thanks, Ms. Ray.
Okay. I have followed this case from its inception. I've printed, read, and it's all right here. Every page that's been submitted to DOA, every report that was filed. I split it up in the date it was filed all the way through, some modifications to the original petitioner's filing to DOA. The DOA recommendations, the district's response, the respondents, Mr. Wilhoit's response, and then the district's final order that we have before us. But I've also looked at the history of all sides, just not one individual. What's not presented in all of these documents are conversations with people that do not want to go on the record. They don't want to be singled out, I'll say that. And I'm talking about people that worked for the district, has retired, people who still work with the district, I'll never name the names, and even people who've never been in the district but are community leaders. And when I say history of all, since other members have brought up the reason this whole incident took place, that's the history I'm talking about. You have to look at the history on both sides, not just the adult. When I said before that if there's a red line, if you cross that red line, I mean that for everyone. I mean that for staff, administrators, but I also know that goes to students. We have a student code of conduct. And if those students cross that level of red line for me in their behavior and even the history of behavior, I just think that's, to me, putting our district employees in very uncomfortable and challenging situations. And at that time, you have to make those decisions, and sometimes they could be, it's a reaction to what's going on. It's a snap decision that you make. And if you make that decision, you have to follow through with that and feel like you did the right thing. And in this case, and again, I've talked to people that has had long history with Mr. Wilhoit, and I'm going to support the final order because I believe the history is well beyond the binder that you brought down today. I could have brought a binder of the other side that would be more significant than what you have. So I don't know if you have any other people lit up, but
Yeah, Mr. Tatum again.
okay.
I'll just make one more comment, and that is, obviously, I think we know where this is going to go, but when I say that Dr. Wilhoit is a danger to himself and other people, it's not an exaggeration, right? It's gone from being very verbally aggressive with people to finally then putting his hands on a child in a situation and acting very aggressively with the child, right? It just wasn't restraining him. It was grabbing him, marching him out. It's just like there's this progression of anger that he has, right? And who knows, is it going to be an adult next? You know, who's he going to put his hands on next? What's going to trigger him again? And, you know, I've been around the Air Force long enough and just life long enough, and certainly the leadership world long enough to know that this is a continual progression of an anger problem that he has, which he doesn't seem to have any contrition for, nor does he seem to want to look at himself and say, I might have a problem here, what could I do better? And absent that, that's just going to keep happening. That anger is going to ramp up, or it's going to stay at least where it is. And I'm concerned that, you know, what's next? Hands on an adult, hands on a fellow employee. That's why I say that, and I don't think this is an exaggeration, right? There's been a progressive pattern of behavior from very verbal aggression to physical aggression, and that's why I say he's a danger to himself and other people, and we shouldn't take that risk here in the school system. He'll have his pension. He's been here for 25 years. He probably should go. And I talked to you, I'm sure maybe Dr. Wilhoit is listening. I take no pleasure in this, sir, and I wish you the best, but I'm just telling you from someone who's done leadership in the Air Force for 30 years, as well as taught it and watched and counseled leaders, is that you have an anger problem. You have a little bit of arrogance. You need to do some self-introspection and say, how did I get here with all these people, supervisors, multiple superintendents, DOA judges, and 2 school board members, thinking that I should no longer work in the school system, as well as a panel of my supervisors, or at least, you know, senior leaders. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yeah, just real quick. I would just ask for anybody who is interested in this case or following this case to just please read the ALJ's recommended order, and then read Dr. Wilhoit's exceptions, because for me, in the exceptions that Dr. Wilhoit filed, there are, I think there are 15 of them. Some of them are very compelling to me, in defense of himself. And the school board, I mean, this is a bit of a technicality, but in the transcript, our former general counsel, Mr. Teitelbaum, talked about how using this policy 4213 is actually about inappropriate behavior with students along the lines of corrupting their morals. Those are my words, not in the policy, but that's just how I would describe it. And Mr. Teitelbaum, I think I have this right, in his testimony, he said that this would actually be properly disciplined under 4210. But again, the ALJ has made her decision, although I disagree with it, because I find Dr. Wilhoit's exceptions more compelling. I do support what I believe is this middle ground, which is a significant penalty immediately. And Mr. Tatum, you're right. Dr. Wilhoit would still collect a pension, but it would be at a very reduced rate because he didn't make it to 30 years. I forget what the percentage is that you lose for each year you go out early, but it's, I don't even want to guess, but it's not like if he was terminated at 25, or any employee was terminated at 25 years, they're gonna get their full pension. So that would be a penalty he would serve for the rest of his life, based on this incident. So, I mean, this is, like I said, a month without pay, plus all these other conditions. I don't know this for a fact, but I would imagine that any person who has been sitting home since last October with their career hanging in the balance, has experienced something that would create a lot of introspection. So if I put myself in that position, waiting for months to find out what's going to happen to me in my career, I would certainly spend a lot of time thinking about what I could do better. And again, I'll just leave it at that. I've said enough. So I will support the modified order.
I haven't really said much. I don't believe there should have ever been a termination. Go back to his file. There's been 15 years of nothing. He writes a book on his own personal time. I think people took offense to it, and you see some actions and things that have happened. I mean, listen, 2 years ago, by a committee of his peers, he was recommended to replace George Schreier. Bottom line. Didn't happen. How it didn't happen, that whole situation was definitely and still is a conundrum. I don't believe he is a danger to the people around him, and I think he's valuable to our organization. I don't even think it should have ever been this far. We talk about DOA. We had a DOA. We disagreed with DOA several months ago about another incident where they came down with a different order, and we went against them and said, no, we're not only suspending, we're firing. So this isn't unusual that we don't necessarily disagree or we don't agree with DOA. We've done it in the past. I think it was this board, I believe, and I think it was after when you guys first came on. I was like, welcome to the job. You got to okay. So,
Yeah.
So with that, I do have Miss Felton on the board, and then Miss Ray.
Just one final thought, because I know where this is going anyway. Mr. Kennedy, you said he could have handled things differently. You said several times he could have. He should have handled things differently. Not just could, he should have handled things differently. And we all have moments where we speak before we think. But this continued behavior of speaking before he thinks concerns me. And again, I don't want to beat the horse. But, and I'm sure he is listening, I do not want this to repeat itself. I don't want to have to be doing this again. And if he can keep it together, if he can, rein in his tongue, then great. Please prove me wrong. Please prove me wrong. But maybe it's too long of being a teacher, too long of working in the world of seeing people say, no, I won't do that anymore, and then having them turn around and do it again. That I have serious doubts of ever seeing that change. I don't think I've ever seen that change in anybody. So that's where I'm coming from with it. I won't speak to it anymore, but I just want Dr. Wilhoit to hear my concerns as well, because I know he's probably watching this, that this cannot continue. This pattern of behavior cannot continue. I highly recommend anger management, and to please prove me wrong, that this won't happen again. Thank you.
I think we're
A few more
Okay.
things here. A danger to himself and others. Through this entire file, I didn't read anywhere where there were criminal charges brought in the case. DCF and the sheriff both denied filing any kind of criminal charges. And as far as remorse, I think he's had several months to reflect. And I think that there has been time to look and see, okay, yeah, I probably need to change a few things. But I'm to the point where I think we should probably call the question.
I don't have any other person lit up to speak. So I don't think we need to ask that. I think we're ready to vote.
Ready?
So you have a motion and a second to accept the recommended order subject to incorporating superintendent's recommendation modification to the penalty. And we can go ahead and vote on that acceptance.
Mr. Chair, if I may, before I vote, I just want to be clear on what I'm voting on. I just
Okay.
want to confirm that I heard this right, or what's in the order. This is 20 workdays without pay, a 1-year performance contract. If there is any discipline issue at all, for any reason, it's a termination. Is that correct? Did I hear that right?
Still have to come back to us, though. I mean, we'll be back here again.
I think given you're right, Mr. Tatum, but I think to Mrs. Felton's point, you know, I think if we find ourselves back here again, you know, Mrs. Felton is, what I just heard, I don't want to put words in your mouth, is, you know, prove me wrong, which I hear you loud and clear, and I think that's fair. That like, if you get this chance, do the right thing with it. Let me continue. Was that a 1-year contract with a? Okay. I don't want to say a termination clause, but okay. Assigned to position that does not involve student supervision. Is that correct?
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
Mr. Kennedy, back to the contract, I would call it a probationary contract, Mr. Finley.
Contingent on no further personnel issue.
Okay.
I want,
But to Mr. Tatum's point, that would still, I just want to, not agreeing or disagreeing, I just want to clarify before we vote. If there were some issue and he would go for determination, we would still have to go through this whole process we just went through this time.
The superintendent would bring back a recommendation of termination
Okay,
to the
so
board.
same
There may not
process.
be a DOA.
Thank you.
Only the board has the authority to terminate.
Gotcha. Okay. And then, okay, so assigned to a position that does not include student supervision, correct? And then 6 hours of training as decided by HR, or I guess ultimately decided by the superintendent?
Yeah, I would say in coordination with the HR lead, yeah.
Okay. Okay. That's what I had. I just want to make sure I had all the conditions correct. So,
Okay.
thank you.
So just waiting on your vote.
Oh, I'm last.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No worries. All right, so the motion is accepted 3-2 with Mr. Tatum and Ms. Felton being the 2 noes. All right, that is all we have for today's agenda. Looking forward to next week, Monday, Tuesday. Interviews for the superintendent. Please, everybody out there, public, if anybody's watching, give us your feedback. Let us know what you think. Board, have a good weekend. We will see you Monday. You're adjourned.